All right, well, it's Saturday, and I'm here with American Krogan. We're going to play some Deep Rock Galactic. How's it going, Krogan?
It is going. How are you?
Oh, pretty good. Let's do... We can do Hazard 4. Yeah, why not?
Insertion sequence initiated.
I want to get Krogan through his promotion assignment, so that way he can actually do deep dives and stuff. He's never seen a deep dive yet. But how's it going, Jacob, Karma, Groundhog Fury, OQAM on Twitch? Good to see ya. All right, so there's going to be a lot of swarmers in this one.
We are unbreakable.
This one's got Swarmageddon and also Volatile Guts. So stuff will explode when you kill it. So you don't want to be right next to it. This will be a good chance for you to use your shields aggressively. But yeah, it's been an interesting last few days. Did you see something about Tulsi Gabbard, Krogan?
Oh yeah. A lot of people are very excited about her using the term anti-white racism, but and you know, I'll be honest, I'm glad that she used the term anti-white. But I think some people are extracting too much value from it. Like I you know, again, it's a very good thing, but you know, she says things like we need to, you know, condemn all racism. So it's really just like, I just see it as a natural, like, I'm not surprised by it, to be honest. I mean, sooner or later somebody was gonna start having to condemn anti-white racism, as they call it, in order to try to keep this melting pot thing together. Because it's just not gonna work any other way. You know, like you're going to have to eventually start calling out the hateful behavior toward whites. Otherwise, this melting pot America, this land that's up for grabs for everybody, anybody, and everybody, you know, that's not gonna work. Or, you know, I mean, you're gonna in some ways it might be a little bit of a pressure release valve. That's might be the way it ends up functioning. You know, because if no one uses the term anti-white, and if no public figures start calling it out, then you're just gonna have more pressure build up within whites. You're gonna have them coalesce more and more and more and more and more and more and more, and that's good for us because we need that to happen regardless. I mean, I don't dislike Tulsi. I think she's a nice woman. I think that she's, you know, as far as I know, I don't know a whole lot about her, but she seems sincere. She seems like a nice person. But that doesn't change the fact for me that we still need ethnic separation. There are still, whether you like it or not, whether you like certain individuals of other groups and all that, I'm getting attacked by a whole bunch of...
Shield up.
You almost didn't make it. So, yeah, I mean, it's, I think it's still good.
I just wanted to say real quick, one thing real quick. I recognize that there are individuals of outgroups who are not bad, and they're pretty decent people and whatnot, but that still doesn't change the aggregate rule. And because of how aggregate ethnic rules work, you still have to have kind of divorce and separation eventually. I mean, and that's for everybody's best interest. Anyway. What you wanted to say.
My grandpa told me
well, I mean, you know, on some level, at this point, I like her using the term just because, well, I mean, I don't like the exact term, right?
Right.
Still using this racist
anti-white racism.
Yeah, it's treating anti-white as an adjective, which it shouldn't be.
Good way to put it. Yeah, it's not, because it's not. I went. It's not an adjective. I mean, literally it is, but that's if you're saying anti-white racism, you're basically saying reverse racism. and that's not really the paradigm that we're in at this point, you know. That she hasn't read Jason Kuna's books. Put it that way, you know, like.
Yeah. So you know, but the point is, it still is sending a basic message that is, hey, white people, you're gonna have to accept the reality that some people really just don't like you, like, for being you.
Die, please.
And that's something that people are gonna have to, like, come to terms with. And if they do come to terms with that, I think that's just a generally good thing for us. Well, for everybody,
well, the
really.
way I see most people interpreting it is, like, you're already seeing, like, these memes, like, Tulsi, why don't you be a Republican? Why don't you be a Republican? And it's just like, what have Republicans done for white people? Nothing. So, I mean, like, I just don't see a whole lot of the masses, like, taking this and driving.
Well, those are
something.
people, those are Democrats or whatever. Or are they, what, who's
No,
saying
these
that?
are Republicans. These are
Oh, that's-
Republicans, I think. Yeah.
Well, so what? I don't see how that diminishes what we're going with at all.
What I'm saying that these people aren't interpreting it as, they're not taking it as a oh boy, we got a destroyer.
Oh, bulk detonator.
Shoot those bags on its back before it gets close.
Oh, I thought that range was going to be a lot bigger. Maybe they nerfed it a little bit.
So out at your range, it's like it throws out the smaller balls, so it's just a chance to hit you depending on if the balls hit you or not.
But yeah, like a lot of Republicans and whatnot are looking at what Tulsi Gabbard said, and they're not, like, it just doesn't seem like most people are looking at it as like, oh yeah, white people need to coalesce or anything, and like they're just looking
Well, no,
at
no,
it like,
and that's not what I said, right? It's we just need people to understand on some level that, like, some people don't like us because we're white.
There be light.
yeah, but I don't think people are looking at it like that. That's what I'm saying. I don't think that's how most people who heard that are looking at it. I think they're looking at it like in terms of critical race theory is out of control, and once we get some of these, you know, crazy leftists, you know, under control, then everybody's gonna get along. You know, and that's bad, I think. You know, because it's not we don't have an ideological problem, and I think that is what people are coming to believe.
It's getting into our
So this is going to be very tough for us.
bloody sonnet, and
I'm
here I
gonna
just
lose.
polish my boots.
There's a good chance we lose.
Eat it. Like that. Need more ammo.
Uh-oh.
Supply flow
Avoided
on.
that.
Better stand back.
Resupply pod is here. Everybody collect that.
Well, this is going to be rough. Jacob says he can't pronounce Jason's last name right. Yeah, I don't know exactly how he
Kuna.
pronounces it. Something like
Kuna.
Kurna. That's how it
Kuna.
sounds like it's pronounced.
Kuna.
There's no R sound in it at all?
Die!
No.
Oh. Alright, where's this last thing? Get rid of that. Down, huh? Well, it's just... Oh, jeez. Goop. Okay, well,
Yeah, there's goop there. That's yeah.
wasn't expecting that goop. Without that goop, we could have continued. But now we're done. Off on DLive says if you're allowed in the mainstream, you cannot be based. Simple as. Yeah, well, I mean, it's sort of like the reverse, right? If you're
Well, you
based, you're
can
not
be
allowed
based,
in the
but you'll be
mainstream,
dealt
right?
with very quickly. Like
Yeah.
you will be gone.
Yeah, it's
like,
the
you
it's
will
the
make
other
your
way,
base
right?
statement, and then you
If
will
you are
disappear.
based, you're not allowed. It's not if you're because it's a reaction. You get removed once you've stated something to.
But that's why I qualified that. Like, I don't think
That was maybe a little more
Tulsi
than we could
Gabbard is
handle.
necessarily like a nasty person.
No.
I think that she's pretty sincere. You know, I feel like I could probably sit down and have a reasonable conversation with her.
Yeah.
Drop pod is ready.
But,
Time
you
to
know,
leave.
it's just,
Skull crushers for
you know,
everyone.
like I don't see her statement as bringing us any closer to the realization that we're beyond an ideological issue.
Just recognizing that. So she says anti-white racism, right? Which we agree is a problem. But recognizing that there is a thing, right? She didn't say, "Oh, these people are just generic racists." I mean, she pointed out, on some level, that there's people who are engaging in hatred of whites. But Spencer, how's it going? Good to see you. Schmerling, we're now on Has 3. So there you go.
Yeah, I suppose I could be undervaluing a bit her
Can we go
the
back?
arrival of her statement. Because I mean, if she begins to say it, other people are going to beat it. I mean that is the value in the end of her saying anti-white, because now anti-white has the potential to become, you know, a mainstream term.
Deposit your quota of Morkite into the mule,
And
we'll send the drop
that
pod
that
to get
is
out.
a good thing.
Good luck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, and we can semantic drift it where it needs to be.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I had a few conversations about the terminology after that one video, my most recent video. Yeah, the anti-white narrative controls the world or something.
Yeah.
So, you know, people wanted to talk about other terms. One of the things that I've encountered that people wanted to use other terms for is they wanted to sort of more inclusively deal with various problems we're having in the modern world, right? They wanted to refer to sort of like group anti-whiteism with feminism and these other things, right?
Yeah.
And they also were using terms. So, for instance, I was talking to one person who wanted to use the term alienism. And it's like, well, one of the things we got to keep in mind is the more our term is self-explanatory on its face, the easier it is to get into circulation, right? If you want to get in complex terms into circulation that aren't self-explanatory, then really what you want to do is use your control of media and academia to make that happen.
Which we don't.
And we don't have that,
so we can't do that.
So it's not really on the table for us.
I got the
And
Well, I
also,
would also
some
say
people didn't
this,
like the term
feminism-
anti-whiteism. They just felt like it wasn't very strong, but I feel like that sort of strength builds over time. And
Yeah.
one of the things I said to them is that anti, as sort of a prefix, is very well understood and appreciated. You know, if someone says, if someone says I'm pro-life, you know, that's when the other person says, no, you're anti-abortion. You know, anti. It does have feeling, and it builds up pretty quick in people.
Yeah.
All right. What, were you gonna say something?
I
crate
forgot at this
here.
point. Well, I was gonna say that, you know, like some people. Again, I put race before ideology, and I think that the problems we have are more ethnically and racially based. Like, those are the core. So, like, feminism is a problem, and feminism, you know, to a certain extent, really does. Well, to a large extent, it does contribute to anti-whiteism. But let's say that we had a society tomorrow that didn't have to deal with anti-whiteism, but instead just feminism. Well, that would be a much easier problem for us to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
Feminism is still a problem, but it's not as big of a problem as anti-whiteism is. I mean, again, you can make the case that feminism helped establish the anti-white paradigm, but it didn't do it. It's not like ground zero.
I mean, I don't necessarily just want to conflate everything like that, you know? These are separate issues to some degree, and especially one of the things I mentioned in the YouTube comments is that especially if you want a big tent movement, like everyone against anti-whiteism, right? Everyone you can get standing against anti-whiteism. By introducing the fewest number of complicating factors, you can get more people, right?
Yeah.
If you say,
right,
well, you know, we only want people who believe
don't
exactly
understand.
this about marriage and exactly this about this.
And that's why all of our movements continually break up, because everybody purity spirals. Oh, you're not a fascist. You're not a third positionist. You know, like we can't have that. You can't have that. You're not LARPing about Adolf all day. You're not all you know, unless you're quoting Goebbels, you know, all day, every day. You're not based. And in fact, I mean, what you will often see from groups like that is like, you know, if some Chinese guy quotes Goebbels, they're like, ah, he's more based than you.
Yeah.
And it's just like, what?
Mr. G says, hey guys, just passing by to know if you discussed about the Killzone series. I'm very curious to know if you have played it. I haven't, and Krogan, you haven't played it. Is that correct?
Well, I played a little bit of it. Like, I don't remember a whole lot about it. I don't think I ever finished a single game.
Okay, well, do you have anything to say about it?
No, not really.
Okay. Well, Mr. G, we're not very helpful on the Killzone series. Well, what does this cave look like? Okay. I'm gonna shoot around. Is there any Morkite?
From A to D, skipping B and C.
This is a poopy cave.
Light is up.
Huh. Well, maybe a little bit of nitro. So Spencer says, all those things are related. I think we should just focus on the stuff. I think we should focus on our stuff, but work together with other groups to some degree. Yeah, I mean, like, there's, like, lots of issues, but not everything has to be a package deal, you know? It's like, when you can get a break in one area, that can be fine. Okay.
The one thing that's really bothered me is, like, all the Palestinian flag-waving people, you know, it's like, if I don't agree with them exactly in terms of how they view the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, then I'm a Zio shill, and I have to go, and, you know, I'm not on their side or whatever, and it's just like, again, the purity spiraling. It's like, I mean, it would be one thing, too, if these people understood what my views were, and then condemned me because they actually understood what my views were, and didn't agree, but like most of the time they don't even understand what I'm saying.
Well, at the end of the day, it's like this tendency of white people to like live through other people's struggles, you know. At the end of the day, these people are gonna fight you harder about what you think about some foreign conflict than our own stuff, right?
Yep.
And it's sort
Indeed.
of it's one of the more sort of, you know, pathetic things about us sometimes. But yeah. Jacob says feminism is a symptom. The symptoms of the current state of the West can be taken care of later on. Yeah, I mean,
well, it's a feedback. It's a feedback loop, because I mean, the fact of the matter is, before the West really went into decline, we had. I mean, I've been a big proponent of talking about this. Western women have always had a place in society that non-Western women did not have in other societies. So, you know, there was a 19th century suffragette movement, but I would argue on top of that, that It was very different in nature compared to stuff post 1965. Okay, I'm out of grappling hooks.
Oh. Call down a resupply up there?
Yeah. Okay.
Roger that. Supplies are coming.
You know, and the suffragette movement, and you know, it's not like there weren't any. I mean, it was largely an internal issue for us, and what a lot of people don't know is that a lot of these female political movements had close ties to their male counterparts, and like male political leaders would talk to female political leaders, and there would be a lot of overlap. I still disagree with the suffragette movement because I think what it does is over time it creates the potential for a division between the husband and wife. You know, I feel like the husband should be the external representative of the family unit, and they need to reach consensus internally, and then the man goes out or the husband goes out and expresses the will of the family. I mean, so that's how I view it. So even the 19th century suffragette movement is a problem for me because that's the perspective I have. But yeah. So like these issues do feed into anti-whiteism, but it's like a lot of these issues are
Over here by the marker point.
existed or have their roots from before all of that, before things really got anti-white.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I've been reading a whole lot about westward expansion lately, and you know, you can, you know, this is really important for people to understand that you can see a lot of like white American apologetics for things that Native Americans were doing that you can draw a direct line from to like bleeding heart liberal mentalities today. So it's not like all these foreigners, I mean, foreigners did come in and they did hijack all of our mediatic institutions and did all this stuff, but at the same time, we did have this disposition to really view other people's behavior through our own kind of weird Eurocentric prism that like, okay, like, I don't really want to get into the nitty-gritty details, but there were various atrocities that Native Americans committed, and some white people, not all, but some white people would come up with these very elaborate justifications for why the natives did X, Y, and Z, and you can just really draw a line from that weird line of reasoning to what white people in universities talk about today. You know, there's that famous scene from that movie, Bury My Heart at Wounded Knee, where Sitting Bull talks to Colonel I think he was a colonel at the time, Colonel Miles, and Colonel Miles says, you know, you slaughtered all these other native groups or whatever, and you know, you're no better than the white man. I'm not quoting him verbatim, but then Sitting Bull does say, almost verbatim, you know, who gave us the weapons with which to slaughter our enemies? And it's basically, I mean, it's just like, you could have taken, I don't know if that's a quote from the time, I don't know if Sitting Bull actually said that, but that idea basically expressed a lack of agency on the Native Americans' part. It's like, you know, well, white men gave us something and we didn't use it, we used it for evil means, but it's still your fault because you gave it to us.
Yeah,
like,
that is a very interesting thing.
And you see that a lot. You see that a lot of the time. You know, and a lot of people today often forget that, you know, like, I mean, well, okay, here's a good example. There's a book about the Wounded Knee battle, and I call it a battle and not a massacre, and I'm not going to highlight why. But the guy, and he wrote a pretty good unbiased book about what led up to the incident, and then he details very well what exactly transpired on December 29th, 1890. But he talks about how the Winchester repeater rifle was a very prized possession for the Sioux, and so Colonel Whitside asking them to give it up was very, you know, and he didn't say this explicitly, but basically insinuates that it was a very inconsiderate thing to do, and it's just like, well, you know, how could this be some deep aspect of their culture? How long? I mean, the Winchester repeater didn't even exist for that long. It was new to the U.S. military. Like, so you have like, you know, like it couldn't possibly be like this
Press the button
this
on the mule when you're
real
ready. We'll send a
identity
drop
marker.
It's not an
for the Sioux.
heirloom.
The Sioux
It's not
just-
like their fathers gave it to them.
Yeah, so it's just like, you know, even then, I mean, this,
Lighting!
well, this guy wrote this book in 1960, so this wasn't representative necessarily of the mentality in 1890, but there are similar accounts or similar perspectives that were written right after Wounded Knee by ethnologists, by U.S. government officials that I think are reminiscent of that 1960 attitude. And it's just really weird. It's just really weird. You would never see any of these other groups doing that for us. That's really what I want to drill home over and over and over again and really reiterate. You know, if the Sioux could have, they would have wiped us off the planet.
Time to earn your
Most,
paycheck,
I mean, there are
Steve.
some
Got a
Native American
doozy of a
groups
swarm on the
whom
way.
I think would not have done that. There are some Native American groups legitimately
carry a
whom
load well,
I
Molly.
think were generally peaceful.
Hang in there. Supplies
But
are
a
on the
lot
way.
of these groups were not, and yet they get this portrayal as being super, super peaceful, and we were like super, super imperialistic. You know, I mean, again, we were giving a lot of these people rations.
Resupply line, go
Buffalo
restock.
hunts couldn't continue anymore
Look over
because
here.
by that point there really weren't a lot of
Line is up.
buffalo. We prevented their extinction. So I mean, you just get like at this point we have this very, very, very warped sense of that time period. And it doesn't do Native Americans any good for us to continue. It doesn't do us or Native Americans or anybody any good to continually warp that, to continue engaging in discussions of that historical period from a very warped base. Unless, of course, you are explicitly anti-white, and then it does you a whole lot of good. But I mean, the thing about that is, you know, destroying white America isn't going to bring back the buffalo or the Sioux way of life or any of these other Native American ways of life. Importing a bunch of Mexicans and Chinese people isn't going to restore the West as it was. So,
Right.
I mean, in a lot of ways, a lot of these anti-white paradigms don't do any of these groups who have been supposedly victimized by us any good.
Right, and I
Not in
think
their
that's
interest.
important to recognize that these people are not like pro whatever, right? They're anti-white. So like a lot of these people will have a view that may be somewhat accurate about like the cycle of violence. Like, you know, one group will do something bad to another group, and then it's just retaliation, and then it's vengeance, and then it's, you know, it gets complicated, right? It's a cycle, and if it had never started, we wouldn't necessarily be this way.
But
And
there's a reason why it starts. Because
so they
people
don't
legitimately-
actually advocate for the cycle of violence ending. They just want whites to suffer from it, right?
Right.
They want the cycle of violence to continue until whites are gone. They don't actually want to end the cycle, which is
Right, and a lot of these people don't recognize that,
Which
like
is why
people
they're
like me and
anti-white.
you aren't advocating that other non-white groups are subhuman or something like that. It's that like we actually legitimately see that there's a problem, and the best way to alleviate the pressure of that problem and resolve that problem is through ethnic nationalism. Oh, I'm sorry, I was almost gonna hit the button to start this, but it's like it's sort of group separation. Like, and in their mind, they can't entertain that idea alongside the idea that there are non-white people whom I like, whom I think are decent people and all of that. They like it's so ironic because for them it's far more black and white than it is for me or somebody like you. I mean, it's just weird.
we just need one fester flea.
Sweet.
Oh man. Ooh.
But I think you were saying a bunch of other stuff too, and I kind of interrupted you.
No, I was just saying that like that we got to recognize that anti-whites,
Getting
you know,
more ammo.
you'll hear like someone say something like, well,
I'm
if
taking
these
some of the
people
ammo.
really wanted equality, they wouldn't push for discrimination against whites, and you're like, yeah, that's true, but that's how we
Yeah.
know they don't want equality, right? Therefore,
Right.
discrimination against whites. If they really wanted the cycle of violence to end, then they would advocate for the cycle of violence to end, but they don't. Right. But
Lighting.
because they're not against ending the cycle of violence, they're for hurting white people. This is anti-whiteism.
Right, and this, you know, to throw the tribe a bone. I can understand where they're coming from at times, wherein, like, you know, there are some people who hate the Jews so much that, you know, they're willing to hurt themselves in order to hurt the Jews. The thing is, the Jews do the same thing. Lots of groups do the same thing. And it's always a problem across the board whenever any group is more concerned about hurting their quote-unquote enemy than they are about helping their own people. That's a big problem.
Grab another ammo whenever, too, because this is going to be where we're going to press the button. Schmerling says, I finally got the Force and Nature overclock. Yeah, I got it just, like, yesterday or something. Ow. Whoops. Okay, press the button.
Drop pod en route. Hang in there.
And I'm going to come back up.
I'm taking some of the ammo.
Just grabbing ammo from this lower one.
I needed that.
Because it should be above us. Oh, yeah. All right. Well, Matt says, I visited the Wounded Knee Memorial last summer and walked where the soldiers fell. It was crazy to realize it was only a few generations ago. Yeah, it was not that long ago.
Yeah, a book I would highly recommend for people to read and get a pretty reasonable accounting of the events is The Last Days of the Sioux Nation by Robert Utley, written in 1960. You can ignore his preface. His preface, like, gets a little overly, like, apologetic. Like, you can kind of see that the
Let there be light.
various people have gotten to him and have asserted that he needed to, like, alter his language and whatnot. But the book itself is pretty decent, I think. I've read through other sources, and shit, I'm focused on not dying here. I've read through some other sources, and I've looked, you know, I've gone and read a lot of the primary sources that he cites, and I think he generally gives a pretty decent accounting of the events. So if you want to read one book and one book alone, you can read that and get a pretty good idea.
So Schmerling says the idea of the noble savage was always a meme. The English
Russo.
have a history of glorifying foreigners. Look at Beowulf. Well, like I said, I think it's like one of our ways of, like,
Hurry up.
we kind of live through the foreigner to some degree.
Snappy team. The drop pod won't hang around forever.
There's a lot of interesting things with that.
Well, we evolved that attitude,
Good
you
work.
know,
We're
amongst
bringing it back in.
fellow Europeans,
Yeah.
and that attitude amongst fellow Europeans is good because there's a lot of reciprocation. Like, you know, like all these different European groups generally, even though we warred with each other and whatnot. I mean, if you look at the way we warred with each other, I mean, we established things like the Geneva Convention. You
Yeah.
know, like we
I mean,
had
if
certain...
you have some British people empathizing with Scandinavians, you can generally expect it'll happen in reverse, in return,
Yes.
right? They
Right.
sort of pay each other back.
I mean, when you watch,
happen
even
everywhere.
when you watch these old World War II movies about, like, God, what was it? Operation Market Garden, where the British troops parachuted into behind enemy lines in the Netherlands. You know, when they were captured by the Germans treated them with, you know, pretty well. I mean, these are movie scenes, so they're not like actual events, but there are accounts that are similar to this. But there's this one scene where this German commander comes over to the British commander and he, like, offers him a bar of chocolate, and, you know, he has a discussion with him and whatnot. And you know, Europeans in various European theaters of war have been respectful to each other, and you know, that's very foreign to a lot of other peoples. Like, again, if you read You Gentiles by Maurice Samuels, he basically says that, well, he doesn't basically, he literally says that we're more concerned, we Europeans would rather lose honorably than win dishonorably. And for them, winning above all is what's important. The task at hand is what is important, not the process by which one fulfills the task.
Yeah.
Or achieves the task. And that's not unique to them. A lot of peoples are kind of like that, or they have an overabundance of people in their population who think like that. And that has its pros and cons. I mean, some people, like our people, when I frame it that way, would look at it like, well, that's an argument of superiority and inferiority. Obviously, one's better than the other, but it really depends on the context. You know, I hate all the superior inferior arguments and perspectives. I don't think they're accurate. I mean, first and foremost, I don't think they're accurate.
Well, I mean, so rather than factual, they're moral. And they're moral in a way that, like, it's going to paint us as a bad guy, generally, or, like, the mean, uncaring, you know, kind of thing.
Well, again, that's the irony of things like Wounded Knee, because people don't tell you this, but we, like, while in the events leading up to Wounded Knee, there were bands of Sioux running around, slaughtering cattle, pillaging ranches, robbing stores, and all this while, we're still giving all of them government rations. Like, they were still able to go and get, like, a periodic ration from the government. A lot of these groups lived off of government welfare. Now, there's a whole sequence of events that led up to that everybody can dissect and talk about. But the idea that, you know, we had no compassion for these people is absurd. I mean, again, these are the type of people who drove other peoples out of their land and had zero compassion for them. They would not have given them, quote-unquote, reservations. I mean, and it's, again, that doesn't mean that I think that there were no, that the Sioux had no legitimate grievances against the U.S. government. I mean, there were instances in which we found resources on native land and we wanted, you know, to renege on the previous treaty to gain access to those resources. Those are all things that we can talk about. But people don't talk about them in the proper overall context. And they don't acknowledge that the Sioux and other groups never would have, they would have done the same thing if not worse.
Well, it'll be interesting to see how the Native Americans, the Indians, respond to demographic change here in the United States, because the only group that really sort of feels bad for them and, you know, really sort of empathizes with them and wants, you know, is willing to, like, give them special treatment is kind of white people. If the country ever becomes sort of a big group of various highly ethnocentric small minorities, right? Well, then
they're going to have to compete with all those other minorities for the sympathy of white people.
Well,
like,
well,
you know,
more importantly, if our entire society changes, there won't be the white people to compete for sympathy with. It'll just be direct competition between ethnic groups, right?
Right.
And they'll be outnumbered, and they won't get any special treatment.
They won't.
They'll lose the rest of their land.
In the events leading up to that, it will be a competition for the white people's guilt.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what, in fact, you're seeing now. You're seeing a competition over the guilt of white people. Who can guilt the white man the most and get the most out of him because of the guilt. And that will eventually, as you said, and rightly so, that will eventually lead to there not really being any more white people to guilt. But I want to highlight again the 2001 article in the Center for Immigration Studies by Stephen Steinlein, who wrote that, you know, the article is entitled "The Jewish Stake and the Demographic Change in the United States," and that's pretty much what he says. He says, you know, if the United States becomes majority non-white, all these other groups are not going to have, they don't share the same history with us, meaning them, and they won't have the same sensibilities.
No special arrangements.
There will be no special arrangement for Israel.
At some point with the Native Americans, I expect that if things were to continue on the path they are, that eventually, you know, you see even now, like black groups and stuff, like trying to get land, right? They want their own land.
Yeah.
And at some point, as land potentially fills up, you get, let's say, Matthew Iglesias is a billion Americans, right? There's going to be a lot of pressure on Indian privilege and them having land that all these other groups are very thirsty for. And they're not going to have a lot of qualms about taking that land away in some pretty brutal ways, potentially.
This is the grand irony, because white nationalists, and I don't like that term because of the connotations of it, but, you know, white racialist Americans who want to ensure, you know, Jared Taylor type people who want to ensure that we remain a majority, we want fewer people in the United States, and we're more inclined to entertain, like, in a lot of ways, if it were possible, to restore, if the Lakota tribes could get a segment of the Dakotas back, and return to some extent to their ancient ways of living, i.e. buffalo hunts and not scalping. Because if you read into their ancient ways, I mean, a lot of the ways the men gained prestige was by, you know, killing their enemies, scalping them, and doing all this stuff. And we obviously can't have a return to that. But it would be nice if we could have a return to their buffalo hunts in a reasonable manner. But the only way you could ever possibly achieve anything like that is if you have, you know, guys like Jared Taylor in charge.
Die, flee.
Yeah, and I mean, personally, as far as them returning to any ancestral ways, you know, I think that should be up to them. You know, I want them on their land with full autonomy and whatever path they decide to take forward, whether it's heavily influenced by the old ways or it's brand new. You know, it's like, that's, at the end of the day, I want that to be theirs. That's why, you know, well, you know, at the end of the day, you talk to someone like me, I think that people are people and they deserve a land and place and autonomy. So naturally, I was very frustrated with the like the pipeline. You remember, like the Standing Rock pipeline?
I thought that was grotesque.
Yeah,
that
I mean,
was
like,
totally grotesque.
So how are you going to get young Native American men, young Indian men excited about contributing to their community and to all that stuff if they think on some level like their land can be taken from them because, you know, someone in the state government or the federal government made a decision and now your house is going to be bulldozered for a pipeline or something. Like,
yeah.
At the end of the day, I'm fine with pipelines on Indian land, but it should be the Indians who make that, you know, negotiation. And that pipeline did leak. Did you remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah,
of course
so
it did. Why wouldn't it? And they don't care.
Yeah, well, it's
and they
like,
wouldn't care for white people either. I mean, that's the other thing too. Everybody acts like, oh, they didn't care because it was natives, but there are all kinds of accounts all over the United States where there are various factories that have been built, and there have been white people nearby, and the women's children have been born with all kinds of birth defects. So, you know, a lot of these big industrialist enterprises that end up affecting local populations, it is not necessarily a racial thing. It is a big capital thing where people just don't want to own up to the consequences of their actions. Yeah. Oh, I got a... Uh-oh, got a big fella here. All right.
Well done. The mule is working again.
all right, get some fleas,
Nitro.
fester fleas.
Please, fester
Let's see. Spencer says, I knew an older Japanese man who was a general, but he had respect for European military history. Yeah, and who was it?
Oh, I have immense respect for the Japanese. I mean, even in spite of the nasty things they did to our troops, because they did.
Yeah.
But, you know, there are things I admire and respect about them. No question.
Yeah, and I mean, there's some general respect I have for every group, you know? You start to learn about their group, and there's always something impressive and neat to learn about. But in general, I'd say, like, when you look at polling of Japanese people, they generally have very friendly views of the West in general, including the United States. So, you know, I expect them to generally treat us fairly nice. It's not all white pigoo go home, you know? I don't know if you guys have seen that. It's a very famous clip. Have you seen that, Krogan?
No.
Oh, okay. There's like a couple white guys standing outside their hotel. They walk out of the hotel and there's like a march. And it's a march against, I don't know, white people or something. Or it's maybe like Japanese nationalists in some way, right? And the guy leading the march with a bullhorn sort of looks over and sees him and he goes, "White to Pigu, go home!" And then everyone in the crowd says, "Go home!" And the guys outside their hotel are just like, "What's happening?" Keep in mind, imagine if we said that about anyone else here, like, "Hey, you pig, go home!" Like,
well, this is what I mean. This
be
kind of
international
somewhat.
news.
there were two things I wanted to talk about now, and I'm trying to think about which one to prioritize. Well, I guess I'll go with the first one. The problem with and this is the Lakotas, I think, faced a problem in the late 19th century that they face today. That they are a people with a history that evolved under a particular set of circumstances. It wasn't agrarian for fairly good reason. That area wasn't really, well, I mean, no Native Americans in North America were really agrarian, but that particular region of the United States was initially very, very hard to farm. So it's not like trying to transition them to an agrarian lifestyle was particularly easy. But yeah, I mean, if they get the Lakota territories and it's all theirs again and whatnot, I don't know exactly what they're going to engage in. I mean, this is, I think, why you see the casinos in some places, although I think the stats on that are a little misleading, maybe. And also, there are apparently government incentives in place that make, I think they.
Now to get the pod working.
If they earn money on the territory, they're not subject to federal income tax.
Set up the uplink.
So, you know, that makes the idea of building a casino very lucrative. You know.
Well, it's often just illegal for other, outside the reservation in most states. It's illegal, and it's just legal for them. So they get a monopoly.
There's that angle too. They get a monopoly. Yeah.
So it's imagine if they were the only ones allowed to have gas stations. I mean, then they'd be making them, they'd be making a grip on gas.
Right. So, I mean, what we're seeing is that their autonomy in some ways. I don't like gambling. I mean, people are gonna hate me for this, but I would probably outlaw gambling. I'm not a do whatever you want type of guy. I think gambling is bad.
Well, and you got to keep in mind on some level, it's okay, so some of these tribes, not all of them, some of them have made everything they have based off of gambling, and it's because gambling's illegal in the rest of the state. So for the most part, on some real level, the money they have because they provided this thing to the white community around them, and vulnerable white people sometimes go there and lose their whole mortgage and get their lives destroyed.
There's a history of this with the Europeans. I mean, if we want to talk about the tribe again, and if you go back, you know, usury and whatnot, there's history of this with the Catholic Church and Judaism in regards to usury. We see this happen over and over again. We will often allow outgroups to engage in a sort of niche behavior that we ourselves find abhorrent, but for some reason we end up letting them do it anyway to our own people. It's so, you know, we can get mad at these outgroups, but we have to equally kind of get mad at ourselves, or at least our leaders, for allowing that crap to happen.
Yeah. So, well, let's see here.
We got a Praetorian.
Offchi says, I've read an article today on how guns made it important. One second. What's this? Things here. Uplink complete. How guns made it important for your government to be widely popular compared to just having a warrior caste. Yeah. I mean, there might be something to that.
Can you say that again?
So, in some other societies, there's a warrior caste. But in here, everyone's got a gun, right? Like, typically a warrior caste. What the hell? Where's this going?
Connect them to the drop pod with the charge cable.
Oh my god. Wow.
If I jump down there, I'm gonna die.
Well, you won't die. But you'll take some damage. This is BS, dude. So typically, when you have warrior castes, that's who's allowed to have the weapons, right? Like, samurai are the only ones who get swords, right?
Ah, right, yeah.
So here, everyone got one. So on some level, you had to be maybe a little bit more popular with your people, is the idea. Oh my god. Okay. Well, this is going to be a really awkward one. Yeah, especially getting that up. Oh, that way.
Guys, are you blind?
You got to take it that way.
Here.
So yeah, that way, and it's quite a ways too.
Resupply ordered.
Supply pod
Well,
requisitioned. Launching now.
Gosh. Let's see here. Some of the chat in here hasn't been, or some people are chatting to each other. Kind of lost, but Michael says most media isn't historically accurate. Look at all the medieval games
really
that
isn't.
depict half of the fighting forces women. Well, and I have a, I had a, what the? No,
Your team
slots.
is getting bigger.
I have.
Wolf
You should have been an
inbound.
engineer, so you can plug up these holes. But
Action time.
let's see. What was I saying? Oh, I had a conversation with Alternative Hypothesis the other day. We were talking. One of the things he was talking about was the general accuracy of. Don't make that hole bigger. What the hell are you doing? Yeah. See,
Me?
this is why I wanted you to be an engineer, so you can plug these holes. But
I'm not near you.
talking
Nowhere
slots.
near you.
I don't know if you
Oh.
noticed he's in the game. But, so, Alt Hype was talking about the general accuracy of history. You know, one of the things he was looking into was some of the history of military weapons, like World War II weapons and whatnot. And, you know, for years and years and years, decades even, you know, some sources have said, oh, this tank would suffer this problem, or this thing couldn't do this. And then they went and tested some of these things, tested the old equipment, and found a lot of the stuff they were saying about it was wrong. So it's like, it's pretty surprising that you could have World War II, a fairly recent war, it's been less than a century, and we'd have all this misinformation about their weapons and whatnot. Well, you know, what's the quality of our information about, I don't know, stuff that happened before that?
Well,
like
I
the
mean,
Civil
this is
War,
what I-
or...
Yeah, well, this
It's
is
like
what I'm talking about with
trash.
Wounded Knee. I mean, like, you know, there's this whole other side of everything that led up to that people
Charge cable
have.
plugged
Like,
in.
there
Prep
was
the
a
fuel
religion
cells for charge
called the Ghost
sequence.
Dance that, like, I guarantee you, nobody in the audience knows anything about. That was spreading all over
hook
Native
the fuel
American
cells up to the
culture,
drop latch,
whereby
do it
there would
good.
be, you know, and for the Sioux, Wakantanka would basically bring about the destruction of white people. There'd be this great
These are the
flood, and
fuel
we'd all be
cells.
wiped away, and then they could go back to hunting buffalo and peace and all of that. And like, nobody knows anything about that. So there's like this death cult religion that's cropping up all over the West, whereby like the Native Americans are like, you know, all celebrating. They're all, I mean, they're literally dancing this dance to bring about our destruction. And it's just like, why wouldn't people be very nervous about that? You know, and you've never heard anything about that. You know, people have never heard anything about that.
Come down here.
And the guy who started the ghost dance religion, Vovoka, I mean, he was basically this two-bit
Fuel cells at 50%.
charlatan. There's an account of him, you know, telling his followers, "Oh, I'm gonna make ice flow down the river, the Walker River, in midsummer." Well, he went to an ice house nearby and had the people dump ice upriver where his followers couldn't see, and so lo and behold, the ice flowed down the river in midsummer, and nobody was the wiser. I mean, so this it's just, you don't hear about any of this.
Over here.
Something.
Come down here.
Where are you at?
I've been pinging.
Over here.
Fuel
You can
cells at
grab, you can throw a
25%.
shield and
You're
grab
almost
some
there.
ammo here.
Here, get into cover. Getting supplies.
All right. Yeah, we'll win. We got this. Two bombers.
Take that.
Friendly fire.
Shield charge.
Well,
Go crusher.
Offchi says it's because history was written
Fully charged.
down by winners and written down by losers, aka nerds. I'm not sure if that's exactly the interpretation I'd go with, but I mean, the thing is, like, you gotta recognize that the people who wrote history were almost never disinterested historians. You know, they weren't like people who thought it was, you know, just sort of academic. I mean, these were people who had very strong opinions upon stuff that had passed or things they were living in, and they had agendas. And how much of it is reliable? You know, unless you're doing history by looking through, let's say, colonial inventory reports, right? Like a colonial store making an inventory report to see what they're missing or whatever can tell you a lot about what stores carry. But when you have some letter, you know, these people were just as opinionated as you and me, if not more, sometimes, you know? Nero says, thoughts on Varg Vikernes. You know, I don't listen to him regularly, so I'm not exactly sure what all he said. I mean, seems like he said some good things. He's also burned down churches and killed someone, so I don't know. It's a general rule. I wouldn't base your life on anything he says, but seems like he's got some good stuff to say occasionally. Any thoughts from you, Krogan, on Varg?
Not really.
Okay.
I don't know enough about him.
Nume says, Krogan, I was pleasantly surprised by your movie stream. Ended up listening to the whole thing. Never heard of that movie before.
Oh, An Island at the Top of the World. Yeah, it's a great movie. Really great movie. Probably one of the last Walt Disney production films that was any good.
He says, also a lot of on-point commentary. Didn't realize you grew up in the 80s. I thought you were much younger. Thought you were a teeny bopper or something.
Nope, I'm an 80s child. I'm probably a lot older than a lot of people think.
All right. Oh, did we finish your
that was
thing?
a great stream because I don't know, I didn't pay attention. But I was gonna say that was a good stream because, or was an entertaining stream because Frody was able to translate a lot of the Swedish and Norwegian that the Vikings were speaking in there. And long story short, the Goaty or the Goda came out and was yelling about the foreign invaders, and he refers to them as Skralinger, which is basically an old Viking term to refer to. Oh, the multiplayer session has ended.
Yeah, you can go promote now.
Okay.
So go up to the go out of your little pod, since you live in a pod. Go left up to the Memorial Hall, and then all the way to the promotion terminal and go promote there. And then let me know once you're promoted. All right.
Where in here do I go?
All the way to the other end from where you entered.
I know. Okay.
So, Offchi says Polish members of the EU Parliament vote against resolution calling to release Armenian POWs from Azerbaijan.
I don't know how to promote. It's not letting me.
Okay, so were you maybe you weren't finished then, and I thought you were finished. So you find the promotion thing, right?
Yeah, I'm at the terminal.
Okay.
My gunner is level 25.
And then there's no promote button under your gunner's icon.
No.
Oh, well then I probably goofed up your thing. Boom. Did you get my invite?
I did.
Spencer says he's related to Danish Vikings. Well, if you're from Northwest Europe, that's pretty common, you know. Those Vikings really got around. Oh yeah, we do have one more. Okay. What's the beer down there?
Warm up. Time to get to work, team.
Oh, well, yeah, we'll use that one. Yeah, the Vikings really got around, caused a lot of, you know, problems of various types.
Rounds of red rock
A lot of genetic
sugar
spread.
around the ring, please. To Carl!
To Carl.
That's it, lads. Rockin' stones.
Yeah! Hurry up! I ain't getting younger, you know!
Drop sequence initiating.
All right.
Feeling much better now.
Well, then I think this will be your
Stone,
last
everyone.
mission
Come on,
then.
guys. Rockin' stone.
Anyone else drinking, or just me?
I'm drinking coffee. Because, I got a lot to do after this.
What are you doing?
Well, I'm
Working
working
on
on, working on the Bioshock stuff, but I've had a lot of just, like, in real life, nonsense pop up lately.
Hope this mission will pay off handsomely.
Some of it I can't talk about because it would probably give people too good of an idea of where I live.
Next round is on me.
Yeah,
But I told you about some of it.
yeah.
Lights up!
All right, team, you're going after
Oh,
eggs
eggs.
this time. Alien eggs.
This is
Now,
my
listen,
least
the
favorite
bigger they
mission.
glow,
I avoid
the bigger
eggs
to Sturm and Molly,
whenever
get
I
back alive.
never. The only reason I ever do the egg missions is for assignments. Get out of here, jellyfish. So, Nero. Whoops. Ooh, platforms.
Oh, I'm out of here!
Oh, Slots is an engineer now. There we go.
A swarm is heading your way.
Oh.
Load up.
Warm.
Victoria here!
Warm.
Be
Boom.
gone!
Okay, Nero says, I want to say that this kind of content, talking about our people's survival, propaganda, etc., while making fun of games is great. When people just read news and despair, it becomes very tiresome for regular consumption.
I got the deposit.
So are you talking like the Wednesday stream, like with Disco Elysium, or do you even mean stuff like this? Because obviously, you know, well, sometimes we talk about politics on this stream, sometimes we also talk about just nonsense on Saturday. But definitely on the Wednesday streams, it's always sort of political, just because I'm always interested in what are the politics that video games are pushing, right? That's kind of the purpose of the Wednesday things. Or, the, you know, especially, well, politics and adjacent things, culture, blah, blah, blah. I know some people take the position that everything is political, and I can, like, I'm fine with that interpretation. I mean, I kind of think it's true, but I know a lot of people don't like that interpretation.
Well, I mean, that's the big thing about, like, male man cavers, you know, like guys who just want to grill, who just want to play video games. It's like they all don't understand that the things that they just want to
Wave is
do
almost over. Wipe out
are
what's left.
the antithesis of what other people want.
All right, get on this thing. Get this thing!
I am.
Woo! Look at all that!
You know, so like there are games where they get, you know, the girl with the big butt and the big boobs, and the guy like Duke Nukem, the hero, all that stuff, like all of their 80s like masculine stuff. Like that's crap that other people want to get rid of.
Oh yeah.
So that is political. You know? So I mean, just a lot of gamer guys, especially from the 80s and the 90s, don't get that they're what they think is apolitical is in fact very political for somebody else. They
Oh, yeah.
don't get it.
Oh yeah, yep. What are we doing here? Oh, extracting holomite is the second thing, so look for the black spears on the ground.
Where is that damn? Sorry, little bug. Your own fault for being full of goodies.
Nume says, I knew Disco Elysium was extremely political, but I did not realize it was this far gone. Talking about the Saturday stream, or the Wednesday stream, rather. What's going on down there?
Enemies frozen.
Oh, I still got it. Nice. But I missed it.
Who's gonna protect you now, we crawling?
Yeah, I mean, Disco Elysium, so
They can kill me.
we're gonna end
It's
up
off
talking
the
about the...
rails.
What?
It's off the rails. That game is just crazy.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you know,
Flares up.
I don't hate it. I hate the politics of it. But, like, as a game, I don't hate it. You know, you definitely, I think, you know, you'd have to really enjoy the absurdist elements. This sort of, like, you're talking to your tie, you know, if you level up conceptualization, you know, in the game it says, who is conceptualization good for? It says it's good for the art cop, right? Art cop. I mean, on some level, you gotta kind of think that the idea of an art cop is kind of cool, even given how absurd it is. Or even partly because of how absurd it is. If you don't like that idea, you won't like the game in general, even if you hate the politics, you know? Uh-oh. Get out of here. Ooh. Let's throw that there. Where is this thing? Okay. Straight in. Let's go.
Time to earn your paycheck, team.
Go over here.
You have a swarm underway.
We will.
Donkey, come here.
I think we'll be able to get a resupply in a second. Yeah, give me a second. We'll get this nitro here.
Incoming. Smoke him if you go.
Well, Molly's coming. Then I'll deposit. Then we'll get a resupply.
The time is up, great. You got shield, Start on this, you freaking nature. Lighting up. Out of explosive, you in my part.
Grab this. Oh, is Molly here? Well. Oh, you got
Nitro's
it.
been withdrawn and supply pod is inbound.
Well, Nero says, you know, because I asked Nero if he meant the Wednesday stream or the Saturday stream. He says, once I get rid of the shellback, your content and Krogan's in general. So Nero says he skips a lot of the Sunday night nonsense. Keep in mind we're not doing that right now, so no more Sunday night nonsense. You're not skipping anything. He says,
I think we're actually doing all right.
I see the value in talking about news, but I'm usually aware and overloaded.
Dispatch whatever.
That's why he prefers the sort of gaming-related stuff. He says, I like a bit of entertainment as a side to information, not just talking about migrant boats, Rotherham, crime stats. Michael says they don't realize they're being conditioned to adopt views like egalitarianism through games. Yeah. That's definitely going to have an impact on their day-to-day life, whether they realize it or not. Yes. And, you know, I'd like to make a video on sort of the subtle aspects of games that constantly, you know, sort of invade our lives. One of the things, I did a stream with Krogan as a test on Odyssey, and we played City Skylines, and one of the things in that game, so there's no intelligence of your Sims, right? There's just education. That's the stand-in for intelligence, right? And in that game, if you are a farmer or you work in a factory, if you produce things... Where the hell is that? Okay. That's all low education, right? So that's all low intelligence in that game. If you run stores, if you're in commercial, then it's more moderate. And if you create corporations, that's the high stuff, right? So they're creating this paradigm in the game where if you're a producer, if you're a farmer, if you work in a factory, you're stupid. But if you're a merchant, well, then you're kind of smart, right? Creating things isn't that impressive or smart, but selling the things that dumb people create, that's where you're smart. And these sorts of paradigms build up over time, you know, across these games. And one of the things we find with humans is humans believe the kind of things they believe, in part because they receive those messages frequently.
Ludicrous speed.
Right? So you could, kids going to school, they don't, if the teacher says X and the teacher says Y, and they provide a lot of good evidence for X, but not a lot of good evidence for Y, that doesn't matter to the kid. What matters is the teacher says X over and over and over and says Y once. So the kid learns X. It's literally frequency.
That makes, from an evolutionary standpoint, that's what makes sense. That's how we evolved, because your parents or your authority figures in your tribe, what they would tell you and over again would lead to your survival. And if you didn't listen to what they were telling you over and over again, you would die.
Mm-hmm.
So the people who passed on their genes were the ones that listened to the authority figures the best and adhered to what the authority figures said the best.
Now finish the job.
So that's what we've selected for overall as a species, for all races. I don't think that's specific to one.
Oh no, I seriously doubt it. I mean, that's probably been a selected for feature as long as we've had spoken language, if not more.
Some of the ammo.
It might have
Probably
some
more.
underlying factors where, like, the more often something gets reinforced, the more you believe it, right? Did I hear a beep? Is there a mask around here or something? Listen real quietly. Any beeps over there?
I can't hear any beeps because there is a truck driving by my house that's talking about yelling. Well,
Okay, one
I
second.
can't hear anything.
Listen for beeps here. No, I don't hear any beeps. Okay. Grab a resupply if you need it. I'm all good, so you can both grab one.
Good work. Sending in the drop pod.
And where's the drop pod gonna be? Okay. Probably up this tunnel's gonna be the easiest way.
Let there be light.
Come on, Krogan.
Donkey, come here.
Warning down. Now kill the rest of them.
Up the tunnel.
Drop pod has arrived. Retrieving the
We're gonna have to dig through a little bit of dirt at some point, probably. Oh!
5 minutes.
I thought we'd have to dig through dirt. Well, we'll have to dig around these walls a little bit. And then we're in. Well, once the mule gets here, then we'll be in.
Lighting.
Well, that was a fairly painless egg mission. Alright, so what are people saying in chat? Mr. G. Oh, well, someone says MGS says you don't read Twitch comments, huh? Well, I mean, all the comments for me are combined into one long list. So I see every platform. But sometimes people start talking to each other, and then if yours can skip by, and I'll miss it. But if you say it again, I'll see it. Mr. G says, have you visited Italy? Any opinions on their Italian people and their role in history? Well, I mean, that's an incredibly... I mean, people have written books on those people and their role in history. You could write books on that region, large books, and that book could still only cover one century.
You could write a whole volume just on the Venetian Empire.
Yeah.
Which doesn't encompass all of Italy. Well, my Italian's kind of probably not great at this point, but I can still speak it. And, I spent time in Italy, and mostly northern Italy. And,
Mission selected and locked in. Time to board the
I
drop
love
pod.
Italians.
Rocky Mountains for my
And
team,
I'm
and make
partial
it
to the
snappy.
northern Italians because, I think they're more like
To those we
the
lost.
stock of Europeans that I come from. But also, I just really like the region. I like the culture up there.
Yeah.
I like the people.
Never felt better.
You get a beer?
Not sure what else to say. Oh yeah, I need to get a beer. Una birra.
I mean, if you have a specific question, Mr. G, I'll answer it, but I'm not prepared to tell you about my opinion on their entire roll of history, which spans an endless number of years. All right.
Let's hit it.
The word for person actually probably comes from Etruscan, and it was actually a word for mask. And
Oh, yeah?
Etruscan wasn't even, it wasn't even a Latin-based language. It was completely. I mean, it was an Indo-European language, but it was separate.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a word for mask. And
Nero says,
supposedly,
"Have you
I've heard other
played?
etymological story.
Have you played something simulator?" I don't think I can say that word on Twitch. No, I haven't played it. I haven't. I mean, I generally don't see a name like that and think that's something I want to play. Yeah, New May, things like that have happened. I mean, whatever. Matt says, is there still a significant effect of Norman blood in Italy and Sicily? I wouldn't know.
Norman?
Yeah.
In Sicily, I would say no. I don't even know if there would be Norman blood in northern Italy, because the Normans were, like, in northern France.
Can we go back?
I mean, northern Italy, most of the genetic composition is from the Lombards, a Germanic tribe that invaded, like, long after the fall of Rome. And there's also Ostrogoth DNA composition, and then there's, you know, obviously some old Latin DNA. The further south you go, the more early Neolithic farmer DNA you're gonna get.
Yeah,
But-
what's that one island? Sardinia. Sardinia is like
Sardinia, yeah.
extremely Neolithic farmer.
95%. Yeah, over 95%.
Yeah.
So, you know, if you want to know, you know, and that's the thing. I mean, a lot of them look. Some of them can have a darker complexion, but a lot of them can look just as white as anybody else. So that's always what's funny when people act like, oh, well, ancient Europeans were dark, and it's like, well, I mean, a lot of my friends were Sards, and they look just as white as anybody else. Now there are some, I think, some specific Sardinian phenotypes. That you get that with any ethnic group. You know, you get some like kind of generic European phenotypes, and then you get some very, very specific, unique phenotypes to that ethnic group. But I love Sards. I think they're awesome. They have
You snooze, you live.
although
Some freaks.
they have what's called God, I always forget this. Kazumaritsu. Basically like
I'm totally loaded.
it's called it's a type of cheese that gets made with
There is gold.
fly larvae.
Oh, that thing?
Yeah, and I would try it. I would try it,
And loaded.
but you know, it sounds pretty gross.
Sounds awful. I mean, I'm
Yeah,
open to trying things, but
Platform's place.
it's pushing it.
Yeah.
I mean, maggots are not food.
Well, I mean, they do constitute protein. I mean,
Oh yeah, I get that. I'm just saying.
but what's interesting about Sardinian, the dialect there, is that they have like these
God damn it,
old
there's a
Latin
devil in
preservations in their dialect. Like instead of saying vincere, because most Italians when they say the verb to win or to conquer, depending on how you use it, vincere means to win. But the Sardinians they say vincere because the ch sound or the soft C sound wasn't present in well, the soft C sound like s wasn't present in Latin. Like whenever there was a C, they would say k. So like vini vidi vici is actually weenie, weedy,
This
winky.
is thirsty work.
I came, I saw, I conquered.
Mm-hmm.
So the Sardinian dialects actually preserve the hard K sound.
With your life.
Yeah.
Lock and load, lads.
All right. What are people saying in chat? Well, I was just gonna say that I'd be interested to see Sardinia just because they are so Neolithic farmer, right? Like on some level, right? What it means to be European, what it means to be white, is to be descended from our ancient groups, right? Like the Western hunter-gatherers, the Yamnayan, the Neolithic farmers. And if you want to know, if you go to the north and you notice things are a little bit different, well, on some level it's because they're a little bit more Yamnaya. And if you go to the south, they're a little bit more Neolithic farmer. I mean, it's just kind of the way things are. Let's see, what do we got in this room? Anything? Really? Oh, I see something there. Yeah, we'll get back to the cargo crate slots later, so. How's the frame rate, by the way? I'm having some frame drops on my own game, much less the stream. I don't know how bad it is. Oh, regenerative bugs. Forgot about that. Well, I'll come back here in a second.
Get away from me!
Well, Michael says, do you guys have a favorite historical figure? Krogan, do you have a favorite historical figure?
At this point, probably Charles Martel.
Oh, yeah?
I don't know that much about him, but, like, you know, he stopped a huge invasion of, you know, Europe, so...
Well, that's always good.
Maybe Sobieski, the Polish king, who helped repel the Turks at Vienna.
I'd say in general, I'm a fairly big fan of the Founding Fathers, you know.
Yeah.
If I had an opportunity to, you know, have dinner with, you know, historical figures, someone like Thomas Jefferson and Benjamin Franklin and John Jay, I mean, they'd be towards the top of the list, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, if I could have like one dinner with anybody, it would probably be Thomas Jefferson.
PJ seems like a pretty smart guy, and you could talk to him about a lot of stuff, you know. You wanted to talk about ancient Rome, he could talk about ancient Rome. If you wanted to talk about the foundations of our society, he'd talk about that. If you wanted to talk to him about his design for the University of Virginia and Monticello, his architecture. I mean, he did architecture very well. Some of his architecture is some of the best example of American architecture ever done.
Yeah, he spent significant time in northern Italy. Big fan.
All right, God, they just keep coming. Do that.
Hang in there.
You can refill whenever you need to, once you're kind of like halfway on everything. Okay. Spencer says, I have a question in American Krogan part Italian because I know he used some Italian words. I don't know what you're saying. I mean, if you have a question for him, if you type it, I will say it to him. If you type it in Italian, then I won't.
Yeah, because I can't see the chat right now.
Yeah, Mr. G, I mean, he's obviously playing the game. Mr. G says, I was asking because in these times where Europeans are kind of individualistic, my people tend to be more resistant to that, plaguing the North Europeans. Okay, so Mr. G's saying he's Italian, and he's noticing that Northern Europeans seem especially rejecting of ethnocentrism, which is true,
yes.
right? More than the Southern
true.
Europeans.
Yes.
You know,
if he's interested, he should read Kevin McDonald's book on Western individualism. It explains a lot of it. There's probably a genetic gradient that goes from Northwest Europe to Southeast Europe that explains a lot of that hyper-individualistic tendency. It's not that Southern Italians don't have any of it. It's just that they're a little bit more ethnocentric than.
Yeah, I mean, when you say when you just compare them to Northern Europeans, they look fairly ethnocentric. When you compare them to other places of the world, they stop looking ethnocentric and they start looking a lot like Northern Europeans. Our differences seem great when you're just looking at us and seem small when you're looking at everybody else.
Protect the drill dozer. It's being attacked by wildlife.
Yeah. All right, let me get this crate open. Once the swarm's dealt, you can both come back and get the crate, but for now, go ahead and grab oil. Grab oil shale and the whatever, and protect the drill dozer. Let me just grab some of this gold. Gonna need this for things. I don't really need it. I know Krogan needs it. Krogan's out of money in the game. Spend too much money on beards. Stupid swarmers. All right. MGS says politics in Europe is very Americanized. Well, I'm not sure what you mean exactly by Americanized, but
Yeah.
Oh, I could need a good rest.
certainly American politics and stuff in America is big news everywhere now. Just the way it is.
Look what I found!
Okay,
Yeah,
I gotta
I would
scroll
say
down to
Italy's
get to the
political
newer
system
posts
is-
here.
it-
Go ahead.
I mean, again, it's kind of like how, what you were saying. The difference is when you're comparing everything in a intra-European sense, the differences look really, really, really big. But in an external sense, like they're not that big. But if you're a European and you compare Italy's political system to our political system, they're very, very different. But you know, again, you step outside the European sphere, and it's just like, wow, they might as well be the same thing.
Mm-hmm. Krogan, I think he wants a thing. Zipline.
The pickaxe!
Oh, where? I'm sorry. Ah, okay. Shit. I don't know if I can get an angle.
You might have to go to an intermediate platform, like halfway up and then again.
Deposit time!
All right. So I've scrolled. Like if you posted earlier, like people have been talking. So
Yeah.
you know,
Time to deposit!
I've scrolled. If you said something a while ago, I may have missed it.
People need to calm down about Embargo not answering every single thing in chat. I mean, like,
Well, most
he's
people are
playing a
pretty
game,
good.
He's talking about stuff, and like,
Yeah,
you know,
give me some
like,
sugar.
he's not a robot.
Well, I mean, I'd say most people in the chat right now are pretty good, but every once in a while, like, you'll encounter someone, you'll miss something that they said, and then they'll be very upset. And I'm not sure what I can do for them.
Well, if you think it's
sometimes.
bad now, imagine when Embargo has, 100,000 people in chat. Imagine when
yeah.
he blows up and he's like the next, what's your name, Pokemon.
Oh. I don't know if I'll ever
The
be
first
Pokemon.
famous, right? It's the first. I don't know why it's the first famous streamer that came to mind. I can't think of any others. I don't really watch a lot of streamers.
No, not really. Not. I mean, like any streamer I've watched, for the most part, like, a video game streamer. I watch people who are.
And then you'd have to pay. Then you'd have to pay Embargo. You'd have to like.
Yeah. It
pay
would
him.
be cost you $5 just so you could, just so I could read your name in chat. Like Pokemon.
Yeah.
Isn't she Lebanese?
Flares up!
I don't know. Is she?
Anyone need
Give me a
ammo?
platform up there.
I heard that.
Nitro here. Flares up! Found some nitra!
Oh, well, let me get down some shale if you need it. I will knock this whole thing off the wall. Very soon. Boom, boom, and boom. That's going to be a ton of oil shale down there. Let me get rid of this too. Yeah, I'm also trying to win, Oh, God. There's bugs here. Come on, get off the wall. Get away from the thing. Oh, he got it. Stern calls me a ham sandwich. Now, you wait a second, sir.
Smooth.
Someone's been watching my Wednesday stream.
The
Calling me a ham
drill
sandwich.
is fueled and ready to go.
Okay, yeah, I think I can get
I'm
one of
taking
these.
some of the ammo. Oh yeah.
Gold says Pokimane is Moroccan.
Ah, Moroccan.
What do we mean by Moroccan? Mean she was born in Morocco?
Moroccan heritage. I don't know. I don't know that much. I
I'm
assume
having the
that's what it
best
means.
time
I
of
don't
my
think she
life
was
right now.
born in Morocco because, I mean, if she was,
The drill dozer is en
she doesn't
route to
have,
Roundstone. Expect heavy resistance.
well, I've heard her talk. She doesn't seem like she has any hint of a Moroccan accent, so I assume she was born and raised in the U.S.
Hmm. Interesting. Spencer says, I think she is. I know a couple of her critics. Yeah, I don't know anything about that.
We got a big horde of enemies approaching the drill dozer. Defend it or die trying.
Spencer says he can speak Italian. That's why he asked about that. He started learning when he was 8 years old. Well, I mean, Krogan, I mean, he speaks Italian, just not, say it's maybe not as good as it used to be or something, Krogan?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's been years since I was in Italy, and it's been years since one of my old Italian friends contacted me recently. But like, yeah, I haven't used it as a real language of communication with anybody in years. But what's funny is because I learned it before I learned Spanish. Like even today, there are times when I start using Italian words rather than Spanish words, and I know it confuses the shit out of Spanish speakers.
Hey, give me platforms. Platform monkey.
Clipboard is history.
Oh, just on the walls in this room. That's why I light up the room. You just gotta give me platforms while you're running through the room, and I'll dance around inside and do stuff while you're in the tunnel. Boom, boom, boom. Nume says, why are we talking about an e-girl? I don't know. Krogan brought her up. Krogan, why are we talking about an
It was
e-girl?
just the first popular streamer I could think of. I mean, you want me to think of another one? Like, I don't know. Give me a few minutes. I'll think of another one. And
Okay,
then-
don't worry,
then
Nume.
we
He'll
can
think of a
stop
different
talking.
one.
Yeah. Paul Logan?
Paul Logan.
Isn't that a big... Yeah, isn't that a big streamer?
Oh, probably. Sounds familiar.
Don't got room for more.
I don't know. I don't even know why I know the name Pokemon. Like,
Donkey time.
I think the Quartering has made some videos about her, or I don't know. I see some shit on my timeline every
Really?
once in a while. Well, I follow various gaming outlets and whatnot, and every once in a while somebody brings up so and so, you know. So I guess recently somebody brought her up.
Alright, grab this.
Oh, I'm shooting at our little pet.
We have a pet? Is it Slots?
We have a Steve. We have a Steve.
Oh, okay.
It is Slots. Slot has a pet Steve.
Yeah, I used to use that thing a lot.
Lights up.
I don't use it much anymore. I just find I always got something else I want to use.
Light is up.
Give me a platform on that.
Supply drop has been
Well,
ordered.
you know what?
Is
Going
on the
back
way.
to the whole e-girl thing, man. I mean, people like cringe whenever everybody talks about them, but you know, sometimes it's good to like.
Anyone guarding the drill dozer?
It's good to understand these things and to be aware of like what these people are doing and how young men are responding to them. So it's just like, I don't think it's necessarily a good idea to bury your head in the sand and be like, I don't know anything about any of these streamers or any of this stuff. You know, because if I acknowledge any of it exists, that means I enjoy it secretly. I'm, you know, like a proponent of it or something. Like it's my go. You know. You, I, and Renee were talking about this with those weird, girly mobile games. Like, obviously, none of us really play those mobile games, but it might be a good idea for us to start playing them for research purposes and then maybe make our own mobile game for that demographic.
Yeah.
You know, so, I mean, these are things, I mean, obviously not everybody should be looking into this, you know, like most of our guys should not be playing girly mobile games or watching girly streamers or e-girls or whatever. But, you know, you do want some people involved in those circles to be aware of it. I mean, because this is what people who hate us do. I mean, there are people who hate us who are watching us right now probably, taking notes. You know, there are people, when I was on YouTube, there were people who followed me, who hated me, and they took notes. This is what smart people do to defeat, you know, their enemies. They familiarize themselves with whomever they deem their enemy, and they figure out what it is that they're doing, and they figure out a way to counter it.
Stand back, supply pod inbound.
So,
MGS,
and luckily, you know, go ahead, sorry.
MGS says, did you read the Transgender Industrial Complex? The NGOs are responsible for more than you might think. You saying something, Krogan?
I haven't read it. I should, but I've been just swamped with a whole bunch of other stuff. My understanding is that it's a really, really good book. Mark Collett had the author on one of his streams, and he sounded like he was really our guy.
Drill has begun cracking the Omeran shell.
But yeah, I would believe that NGOs are more responsible for it. It's certainly not an organic movement, put it that way. It's just not.
On the intercept course.
Oh,
Get ready to protect the drill dozer.
I thought I was killing Steve, but I'm not. No, I mean, a lot of this stuff is contrived.
Lock and load.
Yeah, I haven't read it,
top-down,
but it
orchestrated.
doesn't surprise me. Jacob says, is Krogan also suggesting we look into why even grown men watch My Little Pony? I don't think so.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say, I mean, if that's a thing, I mean, I'm not aware that grown men watch My Little Pony, but if they do and they're significant numbers, yeah, I mean, somebody should scientifically figure out why that's a thing. You know, I'm not saying people should watch My Little Pony, but, you know, like, it's beneficial if somebody like Emil Kierkegaard or Edward Dutton analyzes what types of phenomena lead to that.
The dozer's
You
just
know,
broken through the crust
you
of
can't
the
have
Omeran.
weird things like that crop up and just be like, I'm gonna ignore it. They don't exist, and I'm not gonna understand why they exist. Like, that's not gonna help. You know, obviously all of us here condemn pedophilia, but we should seek to understand why pedophilia happens.
Right.
You know, and that
I mean,
doesn't
if
mean
no
we
other
should
reason than
participate in
just to protect the
pedophilia
children.
figure that out. It just means we need to figure out. Yeah, you don't have to participate in it to figure out why it happens.
I'm taking some of the ammo.
But I wasn't aware that grown men watched My Little Pony.
Let's see here. Mr. G. One second. The thing here. Mr. G says, by the way, Krogan, I found you some years ago. Thanks for your review of Wolfenstein, the New Colossus.
Keep the dozer safe.
I actually bought it, and that game alone radicalized me.
Point. Keep it running.
Precisely after a specific insult to white people.
It's been a while since I played that game, so I don't remember the specific insult.
Spencer says he could never understand why grown men would like My Little Pony.
I mean, the only real reason I know anything about My Little Pony, I don't really know anything about it, I just know it's a thing, is because, you know, I had a sister growing up, and she watched My Little Pony, so...
Now, was that the original series or the new one?
That was in the 80s, so I think that's the original.
Yeah, that would be the original one. And the
I didn't
original
even know
one,
there
if
was a new
anyone doesn't know, it was, I think it was like a toy company or something that started it. It's like a toy company made a television show so that they could, the entire show is like a commercial to buy these pony toys.
Yeah, I didn't know that. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Doesn't surprise me though.
Well, and wasn't Pokemon something like that? No. It was what's that other game? Yu-Gi-Oh, right? Yu-Gi-Oh is a show they made to market their card game, right? Because it's a show about a card game. So it's like they created the Yu-Gi-Oh television show so they could sell their cards. So that way, you know, instead of saying, hey, here's a card game, you should play it, they say, watch this cool show about our card game that you can buy from us. So, I'm pretty sure that's how that Yu-Gi-Oh went. Anyone can correct me if I'm wrong. Michael says, I loved his video on Red Dead Redemption 2. Completely changed my view of that game.
Awesome. Very glad to hear that. Very glad to hear that.
Let's see here. Big Daddy Matt says...
that game in particular... That game in... Sorry. Well, go ahead. Read the comment.
Big Daddy Matt says, I remember Krogan asking if Jim Sterling was really a transgender a while ago, and it's true. He made a massive Spurgout video recently that I think you guys would be interested in.
That is so sad.
What's the deal?
So sad. Jim Sterling was like a pretty decent, like okay, if you're just interested in game journalism, like not like woke game journalism, but like back in the day, if you were just interested in like game reviews and commentary on the industry and whatnot from like a consumer perspective, again, nothing woke, nothing like that. He was great. He had like a lot of very consumer friendly stuff, and apparently he came out as transgender recently, and I thought it was kind of a joke or something, but apparently it's serious, and it's just kind of sad because I don't know. But then, you know, looking back on Jim Sterling, I think he always had some like self-loathing going on because he was like overweight and you know, kind of people probably, I mean, he might have thought of himself as a bug man or whatever. I don't know, but like he was the type of guy who collected like all this game paraphernalia.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and I've never, I mean, not that I look down on that per se, but I've never been one to collect any kind of paraphernalia of stuff. Like some people like have like shelves and shelves of stuff, and I've just, I don't know. I've never done that. But I know some people might feel guilty about that. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know how to psychoanalyze Jim Sterling, but I used to really, I mean, I don't know if I dislike him now, but you know, he seems like something happened and he's got an issue, and it would be great if he worked through it. Very sad to hear that.
Yeah, I don't really know him. But let's see here. MGS says Jim Sterling wanted the philosophy tube clout and lost subs anyway. Mr. G says, are you guys fan of strategic games like Age of Empires? I mean, when it comes to real-time strategy, I played a lot of Command & Conquer as a kid. Never been super into real-time strategy as an adult, but I mean, it's still good. Well, let's see... Whoops. There's the secondary. Let's see where this stupid thing goes. If...
Sending in the drop pod. Starting the counter.
Okay, we're not going to do it then. Just get ready.
No, I'm sorry. I misunderstood. I'm
okay.
sorry.
It's all good.
Lights up!
All right. To the drop pod. Nero says, used to watch American Krogan and similar videos with my ME, Mass Effect, Dragon Age, loving girlfriend. She was on board, but ages after we broke up, she wrote me out of the blue saying I'm a racist, sexist, evil person.
You're gonna find that. You're gonna find that, man. Like, people will get on board, and then they'll have like these spurred, like, knee-jerk reactions to some kind of stimuli or stimulus, and they'll revert for a little bit. I mean, that's how programming works.
Yeah. Well, I mean, at the end of the day, oh yeah, get that cargo crate if you haven't gotten it yet. You know, she knew what you were saying. She knew what was being said was right at the time, and now she has a moral objection to it now. You know, not a factual one. Boing.
Drop pod departing in T-minus 4 minutes.
Let's see here. What else are we talking about in chat here? MGS says he's got an African friend who collects thousands in Gundam toys. And he notices a lot of a lot of Africans are into Yu-Gi-Oh! Yeah, they are. Also, what's it called? Dragon Ball.
The mule is secured. Initiating launch sequence. Deeper Galactic, thanks you for your
Oh, and
good
Big Daddy
work.
Matt mentions
Drop pod will
Dragon
leave
Ball.
with or without you.
Yeah.
Extraction commencing. Good work.
MGS says, Eric Stryker says that younger Africans are turning into Omega Bugmen. Really?
Yeah, I'd have to see stats on that. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if there was an uptick, but as far as like, yeah, I mean, I'd like to see some stats on that if there are any. It doesn't sound like absurd. I think everybody's kind of susceptible to certain like globo homo type stuff, but you know, it's just a matter of like, I do think some groups are more susceptible to certain ideas and talking points than others.
Well, yeah, and I mean, just like what we're talking about now, there are certain trends where like one group will attach onto one thing. There's a different group attaching onto something similar, but the differences between those two things like mattered, right? Right. If they all like Yu-Gi-Oh or whatever, you have to be in your own lobby to promote. Rogan. Rogan?
Yes.
Oh, there he goes. Then he left the game. So in regards to the thing we were talking about with his girlfriend, Base Gandalf says, like Matthew Heimbach, Rogan? And I think that's a different thing.
Yeah, that's if you want to see my thought, I basically All Type did a very good video on Heimbach and related phenomena, and I pretty much agree with everything he said in that video. So if you want to know what my opinion about that kind of stuff is, go watch that video. I forget what it's called. Embargo, if you happen to remember what it is.
I don't remember. But I'm sure you can find it. Goldschnaz says, can you ask Krogan if he's ever seen Jacob Geller on YouTube?
No, I don't know who that is.
Jacob says, I understand the mindset that many have when it comes to being appealed to by something like Yu-Gi-Oh! Or Dragon Ball, but once I got into politics, I just dropped all of it. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's all right in its own way. I have never been into Yu-Gi-Oh! You know, Dragon Ball's all right. You know, if I was... Anyone who ever wants to watch Dragon Ball Z, I definitely recommend Dragon Ball Kai, because it's all the fillers gone, for most of it. But, I don't know. When I have... Go ahead.
I was gonna say that I have nothing that I enjoy anymore these days in terms of like media. Like very, 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 very few things can I enjoy now because people will think I'm nuts, but I can see how basically all post-World War II media has gone down this track. And I can see, without fail, everything I watch, everything I consume, I can see some piece of it in there, and it's depressing. So, yeah. This to me just highlights even more how we need to make our own media at this
Yeah.
point. We need to make our own games, our own media, write our own books. I mean, writing books. I mean, if you're a writer at all, I mean, just write some books. I mean, because like that takes time, but you know, you can self-publish, and you know, that's the thing. And the one reason why Embargo and Renee and I were, you know, kind of I don't know if you guys were excited, but we were talking about making our own mobile game, and it was just like, you know, if we did a game that was similar to what Renee was presenting to us, I don't think it would be that difficult. I think, you know, if I sat down with two other guys, you know, and you know, I just set my mind to it, you know, I think we could have a game out in like a year.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. If not sooner. I mean, there's probably an engine you can build off of, and it's mostly just writing and art, right?
Here we go.
Mm-hmm.
No, I mean, and those are sort of like books. I mean, they're choose your own adventure sort of light books. But let's see here. Ba-ba-ba. What are people saying in chat? Let's see here. Yeah, Nume, I'd definitely look into the alt-hype video if you want to know about Heimbach. I think he was good about that.
Causiness. I think the term causiness is highlighted, or is in the title, and causiness is not like a quote-unquote real word. It's a word that
I don't know if that was... I think he made that video before the causiness video. Because the causiness video was like a really long one.
Well, Heimbach is definitely in the Causey. Maybe I'm conflating two videos. I know he talks about Heimbach and others in the Causey video.
Hmm. Well, he's got his. I think there's a known video dedicated to that. Goldschnaz. I'm trying to. Oh, so Goldschnaz. There's just so much in chat here. Jacob Geller makes video game type videos, more of a leftist perspective, or video game essay type videos. Oh, okay. You know, I'd be interested. You know, I'd be interested in trying to make a video about the Skyrim Dark Brotherhood. I feel like it's the type of video, if I could edit it right, and it would take an incredible amount of time to get all the B-roll for it. But like the Skyrim video about the Dark Brotherhood. Because like Skyrim videos can get pretty popular. I mean, they can go viral, right? And I think there's a lot to the Dark Brotherhood in Skyrim that a lot of people don't realize. I mean, part of what the Skyrim Dark Brotherhood storyline is about is it is a sort of selfish, individualistic woman who tries to resist the sort of re-encroaching of traditionalism and God into her life. And it's an evil god because they're assassins, right? But it's still like the triumph of individualism and tradition, or the triumph of tradition and religion and God over individualism and sort of selfishness. It's a very weird, interesting story that I think I could tell that story in a way where most sort of Skyrim gamers haven't experienced that story before, and I think I'd be able to write it in a way where they'd agree with it on some level, even if it, let's like sort of disagreed with them politically, they would at least acknowledge that I'm not just making stuff up here. Okay. All right, I'm gonna have to scroll down. There's all this stuff in here.
Yeah, Skyrim is something that I promised people I would eventually make a video on it, but I don't know if I'm gonna have the time or I mean, especially after I'm done this video, like I'm gonna need to take a break for a while, like but Skyrim, Renee the Dionysian is supposedly making a video about that, and there's definitely a lot of weird talking. Yeah. There's definitely a lot of weird talking points there's definitely a lot of interesting talking points. There's definitely a lot of interesting stuff going on within Skyrim. Like, yeah. But I would definitely argue that overall the game is like, it's not as impartial as people think it is. You know,
Right.
it's kind of, you know, it's kind of like the Nords are kind of weird for thinking Skyrim's just for them. Like, you know, like you can play through the game and convince yourself that, you know, that's the good path or whatever. But there's quite a bit of subtle cues telling you that that's kind of bigoted.
Or not so subtle cues. I mean, like when you walk into West Helm,
Windhelm.
Windhelm. You know, instead of
Grail.
being able to like have a discussion about, you know, cultural conflict and stuff like that, you just got to be like, yeah, dark elves, I hate them, you know.
Yeah.
just
Roland Stormfist or what, Rolo Stormfist or whatever his name is. It's just like he's like, you know, I mean, he literally like he's just like, we were never asked, and it was just like, well, right. I mean, and he's portrayed as like this horrible, evil man, and there were all these memes back in the day when that game came out about Stonefist, and it's just like, well, he's right. Like nobody asked the people of Windhelm if they wanted all these refugees to come in, and you know, like, it's just absurd.
Yeah. Thanks for the lemons there, Big Daddy Matt. Appreciate it. Oh yeah, I'm gonna have to open the chest, aren't I? Yeah, I forgot about that. Jacob says, I think it was the stigma anime gives off. It reeks of loneliness and tends to cater to teens which have feelings of isolation, and they tend to watch anime, quote, to live through it. Well, I mean, and if, you know, there are different, so something like Dragon Ball Z is specifically shonen, right? It is anime geared towards young men, young boys, right? So stuff like that, I mean, that's all shonen anime. And there's like josei and seinen, right? Seinen is like adult men, and then there's anime for young girls and like adult women, right? So that being said, the biggest ones like Dragon Ball and Yu-Gi-Oh, that's all shonen. I mean, if you're ever interested in anime, the only thing that I've watched in years that I really enjoyed, and I don't really watch much at all, but the only thing I've watched and really liked a lot was Kaiji. Ultimate Survivor Kaiji. It's sort of a psychological thriller, gambling story. It's like a young man who gets into an incredible amount of debt because he very stupidly co-signed on someone else's loan and they bailed. So they're coming to try and collect from him, and he gets involved in this sort of underground world where these sort of rich elite who own debts, right? They are the lenders to debtors. They like make these debtors go through these like death-defying competitions and gambling things, and very sort of exciting. And it's much more geared towards older men. I mean, there's really no women in the series at all. It's just all about the, well, I mean, it's all about what's at stake. You know, it's about death and outsmarting other people and all that kind of stuff. So, if you want to give an anime a shot, and you certainly don't have to. It's the only one I'd really recommend. MGS says Kaiji is tense. Yeah. MGS says, I like anime because it's not subversive, just very overdramatic. I mean, I think it can be subversive, and I think it often is. But, you know, we're going to have to do anime streams where we talk about that.
No, I don't think I can handle it.
Krogan can't handle the anime streams.
Anime is just too... I don't know. I've never been able to... I mean, the closest thing to anime I've ever been able to consume is, like, the Final Fantasy series.
Oh, yeah? We could watch Fist of the North Star. A very manly one. I think that if you ever heard that meme where it's like, Omae wa mo shinderu. That's like, you're already dead, that meme. I think that's from Fist of the North Star. Okay. My computer's not doing super well right now, but I am going to open the D-Life chest. Once this page loads. Oh, this is on the wrong browser. No wonder. Whoop. Okay. Spencer says he knows, shockingly, that Southern Dingo likes Dragon Ball. He's spoken about it once or twice. Oh, there you go. Now, is that the original Dragon Ball or Dragon Ball Z or the new stuff? I don't know anything about the new stuff. I watched a little bit of the original Dragon Ball. Not super into it. I do like Dragon Ball Kai to cut out all the filler from Dragon Ball Z, and
See, the thing about pop culture is that if you can limit the market, if you can dominate the market and limit it, you can basically make huge swaths of people enjoy things that they normally wouldn't enjoy had they other options. That's what I've always found. I'm not saying that's the case with this Southern Dingo fellow or an anime or whatever, but it's just a thought that popped into my head, and it's what's, I mean, that's why all the crap with Netflix right now is so bad. Like, I mean, like we need to destroy Netflix. Like, we need to get Netflix to go bankrupt and cease to exist.
yeah, I mean, it would be helpful.
I mean, the kind of content that they're creating is like, if you... I would be very upset with you if you told me you had a Netflix account.
I do not.
I would... well, I'm just talking in general to people. Like,
yeah.
Do not give them money.
Yeah, I mean, if you... I know Krogan didn't say this, but I'm just going to say this, like... You've seen, well, a lot of you like Krogan, right? And you've seen his videos and you've said, wow, this has changed your perception of games and stuff. If you haven't never donated to Krogan, but monthly give money to Netflix, I think that says something about you as a person. I mean, they're making pedophilic stuff, and Krogan has made stuff in favor of our people. I mean, you can say you support certain things, but actions speak louder than words. All right, let's wrap this up here. John says first anime he ever watched was Berserk, and a lot of people in chat are talking about Berserk. Some people want you to give it a shot. I believe the creator of the Berserk franchise just died recently. He was like 54, so he was only in his 50s and passed away. Very unfortunate. All right. Well, Slot says he doesn't have Netflix. Good to hear. Good to hear. No need to give those anti-whites money. I mean, really. I had Netflix back when it was a, you'd get DVDs through the mail. But
yeah.
That was a long time ago.
I mean, most of us had an account at one point or another, because at one point they didn't really make their own content.
No, they
just
didn't.
Provided other people's stuff, and you could kind of, giving them money wasn't giving them money to produce anti-white content. So,
yeah,
but at this point,
now it is.
I mean, there's no reason, it is, right.
All right. Well, thanks everyone for the ice cream. Nume, thanks for the ice cream. Thanks for the lemon. Appreciate it. Chest is open, so we're done with that. Yeah. All right. I think that's about it. Coming up on next Wednesday, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we'll be playing Disco Elysium. Should be pretty wild, I really want to talk to the leader of the Union, right? Because in the game, the Union runs the town, right? So I'm going to talk to the leader of the Union. Maybe he'll be able to help me solve the crime. Maybe. He's going to be a very interesting character. We're going to be able to talk to some of the Union guys. And you'll see that while the game does do some criticism of that sort of paradigm, it'll also be somewhat positive in other elements, unlike when they talk about anything on the right. Yeah, woman. Yes, I don't know if we'll talk to any women. Woman. All right, brothers. All right, bruters. Don't forget to take your voos. And have a good weekend, guys. See you on Wednesday, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Peace.